But welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the Hasbara, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Being kind is the guys in this mess in the first place.
You can put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste, a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. And, well, it's been a fucking week, as it has been, well, like every week in quite a while. Hard to know where to start, but, one thing amongst the various things that come to mind, there was an interesting video on Non-Compete by American Johnson on whether communists of whatever sort should essentially sort of hide their power level, not just self-identify or something like that. And I thought it was overall a good video and makes a good point, although EJ was kind of made a point of distinguishing self-identifying in sort of organizational settings from doing so in one-to-one interactions. And it seems to me, actually, I mean, and perhaps he doesn't disagree with this, but it seemed like he did, that actually one-to-one interactions there is definitely some utility for self-identifying in those interactions as well. I mean, there are essentially, you have a couple of different variations there. I mean, we're not always talking about deep political conversations there. Sometimes I think it is quite useful to self-identify in a context where it isn't necessarily, where it's just sort of an offhand thing. Not because it starts the conversation necessarily, but because it helps to normalize it and make communists of whatever stripe visible as just sort of part of the fabric of the society, as, as your neighbors, as people you work with, and, take some of the sting out of the word by doing that. It isn't necessarily that doesn't necessarily have to involve a deep conversation necessarily. That just inherently, by self-identifying, helps to remove the sting, the bad taste that has been associated with the word through decades of demonizing propaganda. I mean, it's a little bit like on a recent EI live stream last week, I think it was. Yeah, somebody, I forget, one of their guests was talking about the importance of visible solidarity with Palestine, just to normalize it. Things like wearing a keffiyeh in public and things like that, even when it's not necessarily a protest context, just in order to normalize the idea that, yeah, actually a lot of people are in support of the Palestinians, particularly in this situation, without necessarily inviting some sort of long discussion on this subject, but just making it so so that's just a thing, rather than being some sort of demonized, demonized group that you only ever hear about but never actually see. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit. So We've got a few options here. No Samson has what looks like an interesting one. How to girl boss a genocide. More from the horrible duo of the Kleins, who just managed to have like the shittiest possible take. And I was thinking maybe checking that out. But we also have Michael Crapaport, who's having a go at Piers Morgan, because Piers Morgan said exactly one thing that was like almost decent, and he's been compensating for it ever since by saying all sorts of just complete horrible bullshit. Maybe we'll start with that a little bit. How's everybody doing, chat? Pissy Piers Morgan is rotten to the core is what this one's called. And, I mean, you can't really disagree with the title there. I mean, he...
No fear, the I Am Rappaport Stereo Podcast is here. Biggity boom, have no fear. The I Am Rappaport Stereo.
Yeah, well, yeah, you didn't need to do that. That was a bit much. Hello, Adria.
Podcast is in the place to be. Welcome to the Iron Dome of Disruption. Welcome to the...
Oh, wow. I mean, this is a great time to be talking about the Iron Dome. I mean, because that's done so well. That's, I mean, I believe it's actually more the intermittent dome at this point.
Ziggity zone of disruption. Name is Michael Rappaport, a.k.a. the Inflamed Nazi, a.k.a. the Disruptive Warrior, a.k.a. the Sultan of Sniff.
The what sniff? The what sniff? Yeah.
You go a.k.a. the Raging Bull.
Shit. Well, yeah, I mean, that's about right. He is raging bullshit.
I'm Rappaport Stereo Podcast coming live and direct from New York City. New York City. Just like I...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in fact, I mean, if you look at some of the footage, you can actually see 12 to 14 interceptors. These aren't Iron Dome. Iron Dome is for your low-level sort of short-range rockets. This is what's called David's Sling, which is for for your heavy-duty missiles and things like that. And if you look at the footage of some of these missiles overhead, incoming, you find they'll have like 12, 14 of these interceptors failing to stop one Iranian missile. They have almost totally exhausted their stock of air defenses at this point. Certainly their David Sling system and the THAAD. And at this point, it's not even... it's not even trying to impede anything.
Picture it. I'm Rappaport Stereo Podcast. Hope everybody's feeling real good. Hope everybody's feeling real safe. Hope everybody is feeling super duper sane.
I mean, yeah, because that's absolutely how you would feel in this wonderful situation. He's about to... I'm pretty sure he's about to tell us what a wonderful idea it was to do unprovoked aggression against Iran, and how it's not at all totally self-destructive to Israel.
I want to let you guys know now that I'm going to have to, unfortunately, miss the next couple of episodes.
Oh,
the next
that's
couple
terrible.
of I Am Rappaport Stereo Podcast episodes will not be here. I am taking a little bitty break, doing a thing where I will not be able to podcast, but I will be back. Bigger, better, faster, even more disruptive.
Well, I mean, better. The standard isn't very high. I mean, better would not take much.
Than ever. But if you don't hear me, if you don't see me tweeting, this, that, and the third, just know that I am good. If there's ever anything wrong with me, you
we already know there's something wrong with you.
will know about it.
Well, we do. Believe me. No question about that.
Because, I got a big mouth.
Also
so
true.
It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing, but if you like...
No, it's definitely one of your bad things. Oh, thank you, Adria. I colored my hair for the first time in like a year and a half.
Where's rap at? You know, just know I'll be back, and I'll be sniffing around social media, or I'll be sniffing around social media. What else is going on? It is 613 days. 613 days. 613 days.
Was it 613 days? Hey, Adam, how you doing? Only the best evening, people.
20 months, over 20 months since October 7th. There are still 55 hostages in Gaza.
And who's been trying to get them sent home, because it isn't Israel. Yeah, I mean, it is amazing at this point to hear anyone try to use the captives as a pro-Israel talking point, because if Israel hadn't torn up the fucking ceasefire, they would all be home now. Like, literally, there is no question about that.
$613 days, and what a wacky, crazy time. First of all...
Oh, wow, yeah, those are the words I would totally use to describe 613 days of fucking genocide. Wacky and crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's just wacky how Israel and the U.S. are deliberately starving 2 million people to death, and you cheer them on. I mean, that's just so wacky. That's exactly the word I would use to describe that.
Greta Thunberg, who... Is Greta Thunberg Jewish?
Get her fucking name right. Thunberger. Teen Betty. At least don't add a fucking syllable to it.
Little Greta Thunberg? There's rumors going around that little Greta Thunberg is in fact Jewish, but this little rotten, miserable little... I blame everybody, because when Greta Thunberg was a cute teen and she was like, shame on you, shame on you. And she was a climate activist. They gave her, like, I think, Time Magazine People of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, so what you're saying is she's been doing good stuff for a while. She's been based for quite a long time. That's very true.
Just goes to show that anybody can win Time Magazine Person People of the Year. I think they gave her some kind of Peace Prize or a Pulitzer Prize or an Oscar or Tony, or she might have gotten all of them.
I love how he researches this stuff so well. He just kind of stream of consciousness. Yeah, maybe it was the maybe it was the Pulitzer.
Greta Thunberg. It's been all over the news. And the fact that this has superseded the fact that there are 55 hostages that are still in Gaza for 20 months. 20 months.
Who isn't allowing them back?
Just goes to show what kind of a world we are living in. But Greta...
I mean, it does. It absolutely does. Because they would have been back nearly 2 years ago if Israel had wanted them.
Greta Thunberg and her little crew on their selfie ship decided...
Well, I mean, he's just... That is the line Israel decided to use. Because Israel would never do anything with selfies. They would never, like, take selfies of themselves vandalizing the bedrooms of women that they murdered or something like that. Never... I mean, they don't believe in selfies over there. Like, this is literally just the line the Israeli government have decided to use. And he's just going with it. He doesn't even fucking have his own bullshit material.
We're gonna stop the war and break the siege because they felt so bad about the phantom famine. That's...
the phantom famine? I mean, Israel openly acknowledges that they're starving them to death. I mean, has done for... Again, about, 20 months now?
Been going on, allegedly, in Gaza since the war started, when Israel was attacked on a sleepy Saturday morning. We all know the story.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's certainly the Gaza division was sleeping on it.
We know all about it. But Greta Thunberg, they got a ship and they got a boat, And I don't know how they raised all this money, you suckers.
Well, because a lot of people don't like this genocide and want to stop it.
You suckers, you gave her money for a boat, and they got flotation devices and all this.
Wow, they got flotation devices too. So it's a boat and it has flotation devices. So it's seaworthy, basically. Like, what the fuck is your point?
So they were going to go into Gaza, and of course they knew, because I'm sure they ran it up the flagpole and all the researchers and they talked and all that stuff. They knew they were never going to get to Gaza.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the point, actually. To force Israel to either allow a ship carrying humanitarian aid to get to Gaza, which would end the blockade and would just be... No, it was a Saturday morning, which would just be compliance with the Geneva Conventions, or to attack and abduct a ship full of well-known people. Since let's just remember, there was a previous ship right before the one Greta was on, and Israel bombed it. And she got on the very next one that was headed that way. Now Malaysia apparently is going to be sending a flotilla of, they say, 1,000 ships. I don't know if they mean that literally. But this one is sponsored by the Malaysian government. I don't know whether they're actually going to include any kind of, like, defensive escort or something like that, which absolutely, it's a disgrace that nobody is doing that. But, yeah, I mean, the whole point was either Israel has to commit a war crime or they have to open a hole in their illegal naval blockade. So that was the point, yes. Very good, Michael. Very good.
And I'm sure they wish that they would have, things would have gotten worse, but they got close to Gaza, and Israel kept saying, you little Thunberger, you little, you. Oh, well, I would have loved little Greta and her crew to go into Gaza.
I would have too. That would have been wonderful because people desperately need what they've got on that boat. Well, the thing is, I mean, that particular Saturday was Simchat Torah, so it was actually a holiday weekend. So a lot of the Gaza division and actually the IDF in general had the day off. They were on leave. So they actually had less security at the ghetto perimeter than they usually do.
I would have loved that, for them to see the chaos and the kookiness themselves.
The kookiness. It's wacky and kooky. Yeah, it's a wacky, kooky genocide. Yeah, I mean, it would have been great if they had been able to document for themselves, because Israel doesn't actually allow anyone from the outside to come in and document it, while at the same time they're also murdering the people on the inside who are documenting it. Hey, Riveroon, welcome back.
The Israel ships, the Israel Marines, and the Coast Guard of Israel, I know it's not called the Coast Guard of Israel, they got their ship, they arrested these little...
I mean, it's not called an arrest when you stop a ship on the high seas in international waters. That's called hijacking, actually. That's the word you're searching for.
And, they had everything planned out. They knew everything. They had it all. Greta Thunberg.
Wait, is he saying Israel? Is he trying to praise Israel for managing to hijack an undefended civilian vessel? Hey, Badger. No, Netanyahu didn't plan shit. That's the thing. Netanyahu, in fact, one of the interesting things was that Egyptian intelligence actually warned that there was probably a preemptive strike from the Palestinian resistance in the offing around that time, and Israel just dismissed it. They totally dismissed the idea that the Palestinians were able to fight. And the result was, I mean, they managed to defeat the Gaza division in less than an hour.
Had the audacity.
I mean, there was absolutely nothing planned about it in terms of, Israel's response to it. It was absolute chaos. They didn't even have, for most of the first day, they didn't even have command and control. The whole thing was just an absolute shambles.
Nerve. to have a pre-recorded video stating that if you see this video, I have been blah, 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 and kidnapped.
Well, what the nerve to that? Wow, the fucking nerve of the people on that ship that was likely to be hijacked and kidnapped to make preparations for that. Why couldn't they just let Israel control the narrative? That's such a microaggression, as Israeli propagandist Miri Eisen put it on that fucking ghoulish JNS YouTube channel at one point that we saw.
Had the audacity when there are 55 people still being held.
There are like over 10,000 hostages being held by Israel right now. And actually, at this point, since Israel is not letting Israelis fly out of the country, probably at least in part, because they're hemorrhaging reservists. Reservists are not answering their call-ups. No, they did not want this to happen. They genuinely did not expect this to happen. The thing is, Israel, it's worth noting. Hello, link spam. They do not train their military in defensive tactics. They literally do not rate the Palestinians as capable of fighting. This was an extremely sophisticated operation on the Palestinian side, planned for literal years. They had been actually deliberately lulling the occupation into a false sense of security, at the same time as running a number of counterintelligence operations on Shin Bet. This was not something that Israel wanted, because it completely exposed the IDF as being completely incompetent. And every single day since then, they've continued to be exposed as completely incompetent.
Kidnapped.
Liberal Zionists actually have occasionally tried to make that claim in order also to suggest that actually, the early version of this particular nonsense, which has not panned out, like the evidence was just lacking, was actually that Trump made this happen. This in order to win the election. That was the original version of this, but it did not bear out. What we know at this point is this was a preemptive strike by the Palestinian resistance because they had intelligence that Israel was planning a genocidal assault like the one they're doing.
On videotape, since October 7th, that little Greta Thunberg had the audacity to say she has been kidnapped.
The audacity to say the thing that happened.
A self-induced fake phantom kidnapping with a self-induced fake...
What is a fake phantom kidnapping?
Fake phantom famine that they said they were going to fix.
They didn't say they were going to fix it. They were going to alleviate it somewhat by ending the blockade that was causing the famine, and still is.
You little... And I was talking to Jordan Winter of the Dust Brothers. Jordan Winter and, of course, Miles Davis of the Dust Brothers, a.k.a. the Bleach Brothers. And he said, she's over 21. You could call her whatever you want. And I was like, I know.
Wait, what?
I know. He goes, she's not a kid anymore. You could call her anything you want. And I said, I know.
Well, he can call her up. Or up. Because, God, you're gonna do genocidal propaganda, but you stop at swearing on the stream. That is wild. Propaganda for genocide is cool as far as Michael Rappaport is concerned, but he won't swear.
This is a slippery, slippery slope. But the fact that she had the audacity to say that they went from wherever, I think they took off from Italy on a boat, and they...
Yes, they did use a boat.
Knew it was going to get intercepted. They knew they were going to get arrested.
Yeah, that's why they pre-recorded these videos in the event that they got hijacked by Israel, because that was likely, because that has happened a number of times.
She had the audacity to say that what happened to her was a kidnapping.
But it was.
You little you. And it's just such a chaotic time. I had a super duper viral tweet inadvertently. Cause
Inadvertently viral tweet. That sounds like he's saying he got ratioed.
Piss stained Piers Morgan, who's just a rabble rousing dribble dick.
A rabble-rousing dribble. You can sing that to the tune of 99 Luftballons. Rabble-rousing dribble dick.
Low life. Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey.
Like, fucking... Is he just going to pile adjectives on? Is that his entire thing?
Circus. Anti-Semitic. Anti-Jewish.
Those are the same thing. This is all for one fucking... Okay, he actually acknowledged briefly and very grudgingly that, yeah, there's a genocide going on at this point. He did not do this in the context of apologizing for lying about it for the past 20 months. He acted like this is something new, that and that he was right the whole time, but now things have changed, as opposed to the reality, which is that this has been going on for 20 months. And he immediately started, peppering his tweets with, like, all sorts of pro-Israel bullshit, because he is a purveyor of pro-Israel bullshit.
He has had every single bottom feeder, from Dick Stain Dan Blazarian to Comic Dave Smith.
Wait, this motherfucker is gonna put scare quotes around other people who are supposedly comics?
To Norman Finkelstein and all these other lowlifes he has on his show. And full
well, yes, in order to yell at them and dismiss what they're saying.
Transparency, Piers Morgan and his producers have reached out to me numerous times.
So, Jesus, really? That is a lower standard than I would have expected for Piers Morgan, because this guy isn't even coherent.
Numerous.
Like, usually his standard is like, I mean, he certainly puts plenty of racist fuckers who are full of shit on there, but they are coherent racist fuckers who are full of shit. This guy can't even do a sentence.
Times throughout the years, and numerous times since October 7th to be on their show, and I've considered going on there. I always ask them, who else would I be on with? I'll only come on
with people that he knows he won't have any trouble arguing against, of which there are basically none.
It's just me. And a couple of times they said, yeah, it'll just be you and Piers. And I'm just like, why would I go on this show? Why would I go on a show
where there is likely to be at least one person who will totally fucking wreck you
with somebody who has had the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of the bottom anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish guests on there? Because all he wants...
The bottom of 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 the bottom. So, like, an ass.
Wants is for people to come on.
Like, people listen to this on purpose and not just for, like, hate watching it. I don't understand. It's like, even if you were looking for pro-Israel propaganda, it's like he's trying to do the whole sort of, like, the pissed off comic routine. Except he doesn't know how to do comedy. So all he's doing is just incoherence. Yeah, I mean, even Piers Morgan would look good by comparison.
He doesn't really care, and I don't. And some people say he's this, some people say he's that. Whatever it is, he doesn't have a strong enough sense of self to stand for.
Yeah, that's the problem with Piers Morgan. He doesn't have enough ego.
Something consistently. And I know the urge and the temptation when you hear a name like Piers Morgan, and Piers Morgan has invited you on the show. The urge and the temptation is to go, I'm going to go on there, and I am going to have this silver bullet of information. And
oh, I would love to, as much as I would hate to give him any views, because fuck Piers Morgan, It would be absolutely hilarious to see him go on there with his fucking silver bullet of information, with anyone on there capable of giving a counterpoint.
Truth and fact.
I mean, it would just, which is why he doesn't do it, of course, because he knows he would be absolutely fucking humiliated. He would look like Caitlyn Bennett.
And it just is never going to work out that way when you deal with a lowlife like Piers Morgan. So I tweeted...
I mean, and I have to agree, Piers Morgan is a lowlife. He's a shithead.
The other
Yeah, but I mean, what's wild about this is, like, he's getting this for the one non-shitty thing he ever said.
day, for all you Jews, for all the Jews and all the people that believe that Israel has the right to exist, aka Zionists, because I truly believe, I truly wish that the term Zionist did not exist.
I mean, I agree. I also wish the movement didn't exist.
Because Zionist simply means that you believe that Israel has the right to exist as a sovereign state. But I would.
Well, no, it doesn't. That is bullshit. It means way more than that. But even that, even if it were just that, that still sucks.
I wish that term was never invented.
I agree. There should not be Zionism. I wish there was no Zionism too. Fuck
It
Zionism.
sounds so exotic, like an exotic plant or exotic sort of
Work 12 hours doing what? You must be tired.
piece of information, exotic song, exotic theory, exotic state of mind. It's very simple.
It's an exotic state of mind.
A Zionist means you believe that Israel has a right to exist.
I mean, no. It starts out by the idea that you believe that the so-called Jewish question actually exists. That is one key thing about Zionism, and that the problem is that we do not belong in the countries we're from. We instead belong in, colonizing somebody else's country and calling it our national soil. Like, I mean, it's always interesting that Zionists have to lie about it and lie to themselves about it.
A sovereign nation, period, end of story, and so forth.
I mean, and I even if we take that definition, I mean, I agree. I think it would be better if there wasn't Zionism.
So on. But
Gee, packing and delivering salmon, yeah, that sounds exhausting.
end of story. But I tweeted that Jews and Zionists don't go on sloppy Piers Morgan's show.
Yeah, but they do, though. They do. Both Jews and Zionists. A lot. They are regulars on there.
I understand the urge and the need to want to fight and to want to fight the misinformation and the anti-Jewishness. But this guy does not care about us. He does not care about Israel.
I mean, he seems to actually be very pro-Israel. I mean, he's been lying for Israel for 20 months. Now, you could say on a certain level that he doesn't care in the sense that what Israel's doing is actually extremely self-destructive. They're falling apart at the seams as a result of this. And that anyone who actually wanted to ensure the regime's long-term survival would be telling them to dial it back in that sense. But I don't actually. It's interesting how few of Israel's supporters are making that point. I mean, you hear a couple of liberal Zionists will make that point, but for the most part, it's like the people just refuse to acknowledge that this is not actually looking good for Israel in the long run.
Cares about his own show and his own ratings. Fuck his show. At this point, who needs it? Who wants it?
I mean, admittedly, I don't. Worst person you know had a totally valid point. I don't need or want Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan really is not an asset to anything.
There's plenty of other platforms to go on, and at this point, going on Piers Morgan...
I mean, for example, he likes to go on the Michael Rappaport podcast. That is a podcast that he's always welcome on.
And arguing with somebody like Dave Smith, who has burst onto the scene. He goes by the name of Comic Dave Smith. I've never seen Dave Smith at any comedy club.
I mean, that's still better than Michael Rappaport, who has been seen at comedy clubs but not getting any laughs.
Not to say that I go to all the comedy clubs all the time, but I've never heard of Dave Smith. I've never seen him with his name.
I mean, admittedly, I haven't either.
On a lineup. I've never seen his name on a lineup at any one of the clubs. Ever. Whether or not he's a good comic or not, I have no idea.
Yeah, well, I can believe that because he doesn't seem to know what comedy is.
But he's a self-hating, slick dick, three-card Monty pimp.
A self-hating, slick dick, three-card Monty pimp. This is so eloquent.
Talking, self-hating.
You already said that. I mean, is this a combination to something?
Wannabe intellectual bullshit artist.
Yeah, I hope you get to relax a bit after that. That sounds like a lot. I've never done anything involving fish, but it seems like that, the packing and the delivering, I mean, apart from just being tiring and probably quite cold, you'd probably need a long shower after that.
Well, we don't need to go on Piers Morgan to debate with Dave Smith, to debate with Norman Finkelstein, to debate...
I mean, admittedly, I have to say, I don't have a very high opinion of Finkelstein in general, except though he does know his shit. That you really can't deny that. But his liberal Zionist cringe arc has not been good. But I have to say, I would actually have to break out the popcorn if he decided to have debate this jabroni, because there would be nothing left of him.
With that other pudge ball, Mahandi, whatever his name is. All right.
The pudge ball, and it's Marandi.
Any of these people. Fuck him. Fuck Piers Morgan. Fuck his show.
I mean, critical support from Michael Rappaport. I agree with the fuck Piers Morgan, fuck his show policy.
Fuck his platform.
And his platform, yeah, okay.
Don't give him the airspace. Let him say whatever they want. He's gonna say it anyway. And as soon as you get off the air, he's gonna have another guest to
That's kind of how these things work. He has guests.
Say bad things, horrible things, and fake things.
The bad things, the horrible things, and the fake things.
And Piers Morgan...
he does not prepare. I'm getting the feeling. He does not sit down and actually... He clearly does not script it, but he doesn't even seem to have thought about what he was going to talk about beforehand. I mean, I will say I'm not always the best extemporaneous speaker, though I think I'm getting better at that. But I at least have some idea what the fuck I'm gonna say.
After I tweeted something about Michael Rappaport is a little troll and he doesn't speak for the Jewish people.
Wow, this is beautiful. Yes, I did hear he was released, and I hope he gets way the fuck away from Louisiana in a real hurry. Wait, I mean, so we've got him saying fuck Piers Morgan for the wrong reasons, and Piers Morgan slagging off Michael Rappaport. Okay, this is the feud we need.
Blah 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 blah. I never said I spoke for anybody. I speak for myself, Piers Morgan.
And not very well, one might add.
I never said I was a spokesperson. I never said I was a leader.
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not one.
I didn't even begin to think that I was any sort of leader or spokesperson for anybody other than myself. There are so many more articulate, brilliant...
That's true. There are lots of people who are more articulate than him. I mean, he's not wrong. I mean, it's actually hard to find somebody less articulate.
Well-spoken,
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely lots of people more well-spoken to.
People that you could go to for information.
There are definitely better people to go to for information than Michael Rappaport, too. I mean, he is making valid points here. He is not particularly well-spoken, he's not particularly astute, and he's not a good person to go to for information. I mean, this is an entirely valid point he's making. He's making the obvious point that nobody should listen to Michael Rappaport.
I've mentioned them many, many times. There's so many other follows. There's so many other strong voices.
Yeah.
For Jews and Zionists other than me. But I will tell you one thing, piss-stained Piers Morgan, that when I
Okay, I mean, that's not bad.
speak, people do listen.
The trouble is, it is actually extremely hard to sue. The laws that exist to sue to sue for police action are almost entirely directed at state level action. What the claim that he would have potentially against the feds is what's called a Bivens claim, and those are actually really difficult to win on because the federal courts try very hard to limit their availability. It's based on a case called Bivens versus 6 unidentified federal narcotics agents. But yeah, I mean, it would be good.
Because I keep it 500% real floors, Ward.
500% real floors. Is he selling carpet now too?
Whelps, mistakes and all. You are a soulless shit stain that stands for nothing.
Well, you're a soulless shit stain that stands for bad things. Is that so much better?
Nata.
Nata means born in Italian. It's nada, weon. Or nada.
Nothing or nada. You're a pot stirrer. And like I said, I understand the urge and the need and the value of going on somebody with a big platform like Piers Morgan, but there's plenty of other platforms.
Yes, but how many of them want to have you on them?
There's plenty of other people that are righteous, that really want to hear from strong, smart, honest people
That's probably why they haven't invited him.
that stand by Israel, that are Jewish.
Yeah, except the thing is, people who stand by Israel, by definition, are not honest.
And that are Zionists, other than this motherfucker, Piers Morgan. He's making so much money. Show after show, debate after debate, with Jews not...
I can tell you what the deal is there. It's actually, the fact that the case is captioned that way is precisely why I remember it so easily. But what happened is this ended up getting to the Supreme Court at the very beginning of the case. They filed this suit, and it got dismissed, and it went to the Federal Appeals Court. I don't remember what circuit. This is the 1970s. And so the identification of these narcotics agents would have happened in discovery, but this case got kicked at the trial level before discovery had happened. So they hadn't had a chance to identify them yet. But at that time, the Supreme Court did actually side with Bivens and say that there was a claim. I forget what the exact argument was. It's been a while. But sort of by analogy to 42 U.S.C. Section 1983, which applies to suits against state-level actors for unconstitutional acts and illegal acts.
And all the other, the crabs, the Dick Stain damn Blazarians, and
the crabs and the Dick Stain Dan Blazarians. What's wrong with crabs?
Dave Smith and the rest of these hand jobs. Hateful hand...
Yeah, hand jobs actually make people happy, though.
Jobs, a bunch of hateful hand jobs.
How do you do a hateful hand job? Do you slather your hand in Tabasco first? Second Circuit, actually. I'm gonna drop the case in chat for anyone who wants to read it.
He has on his show. So I'm not calling for a ban. I don't speak for anybody, but I'm
That's true. He doesn't speak for anybody.
we don't need him. We don't need him now. It doesn't move.
Yeah, you fucking do. Like, who the hell... Well, I mean, you need large media platforms to spew this propaganda, but, I mean, I tend to agree that Crapaport is really not an asset to the effort because he's not good at this.
The needle. There's been so many brilliant people on there that have been disrespected, cut off, mocked, done his show, and then...
Oh, well, that's precisely why. Oh, I love crabs. I think crabs rock. One of my anti-horseshoe crab is one of my lesser cryptids.
After they leave, done his show, and been teased and ridiculed online after they leave.
Stop teasing the genocide propagandists. That hurts their feelings.
Piers Morgan, fuck his show and fuck his platform. Fuck pissy Piers Morgan, fuck his pissy show, and fuck his pissy platform. Anyway, tell a friend to tell a friend about the I Am Rappaport Stereo Podcast.
Okay, tell your friends that Michael Crapaport is really an incoherent sod.
Subscribe, rate, review. Subscribe, rate, review if you're watching me.
I mean, okay, I'll review it. Michael Crapaport is an incoherent podcaster whose entire thing is trying to do what seems to be an attempt at comedy, but is too incoherent to actually land and too racist to be worth listening to.
On YouTube. And leave a question. Leave a question. Leave a comment. Leave a question. Leave a comment. And make sure you leave a review.
Hit the notification bell.
For the I Am Rappaport Stereo Podcast. Anyway,
okay. Moving on. Kind of curious about this Noah Samson thing.
Okay, listen. The H3 podcast.
Gonna drop this link in chat. Wow, his mustache came back quickly.
They're up to no good once again. They're doing more of that stuff that we've seen. Keela Klein, co-host of the H3 podcast, wife to friend of the show, Ethan Klein.
It's not a threat. I'm going to sue you.
She's posted on Instagram stories praising the IDF. Yeah, Keela Klein to her 7.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, there is absolutely no fucking way to defend. I mean, there was a time where she was sort of hiding behind the idea. She said she was like only clerical worker with the IDF or some bullshit, which apparently, but I mean, at this point, it is absolutely clear where she stands. Nixon or Ford? It was the 1970s, certainly. 71, so yeah, Nixon.
175,000 followers reposted an image from an Israeli propaganda account that shows a female Israeli Air Force pilot. Hila adds the caption, female pilot who participated in the attack in Iran. Israeli women...
The attack, that it's worth remembering, was launched under the cover of fake diplomacy.
Are heroes. This post is, for a variety of reasons, absolutely batshit insane. Israel, as many of you surely know, is committing a genocide of the Palestinian people in Gaza. There's no real debate on what's happening there. It's genocide. The United Nations, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Israeli Human Rights Watch.
Yeah, I mean, calling Israeli pilots in particular heroes is wild. Because if anyone there is probably no easier alleged combat job in the IDF than their fucking pilots, because their pilots basically never have to deal with air defenses. They are flying, most of their work is easily safer than your average commercial flight, because they're flying a few miles away to an area to bomb people who don't have air defenses, and then they fly back home. Like, literally, the only risk is if there's an equipment failure or pilot error. And in the case of Iran, it appears they are, in fact, mostly staying outside of Iranian airspace because they don't want to have to evade Iranian air defenses.
That Salem 15 out of 17 of the judges of the International Court of Justice, they ruled that Israel is committing a plausible case of genocide. That was over a year and a half ago, and Israel has only escalated its killing, starvation, and destruction. There's lots of ways that this is facilitated, violent mass slaughter, deliberate civilian targeting. Israel's killed tens, probably hundreds of thousands of Palestinian people, including tens of thousands of children. It consists of the use of starvation as a weapon of war. Gaza is a concentration camp with Israel controlling everything that comes in and out. And they are currently using that control to completely block any humanitarian aid from entering the Strip. Starvation and disease are widespread. Children, babies, starving. Yeah,
and I mean, there are reports from Gaza that are just absolutely harrowing, that just things are totally breaking down there because people are also starving.
They're also not letting medical supplies, things like medication and anesthesia, so thousands of children are undergoing amputations with no anesthetic. And one of the primary tools of this genocidal arsenal is Israel's Air Force. The aerial bombings are what have made Gaza...
In fact, that is they are the main killers. The ground forces really could not do... If Israel's military were grounded, if they did not have an air force, they couldn't do this. Because Israel's ground forces are absolute rubbish. They are dog shit. They do not know how to fight. And the resistance constantly sends them packing everywhere they go. This is only possible, this amount of mass murder is only possible because of their air force. It would really, if something were to happen to those planes and they got destroyed in the hangar, that would be absolutely terrible.
All the schools, hospitals, mosques, water treatment plants, everything meant to provide the basic necessities for life in Gaza, including housing itself. Over 90% of the residential buildings have been completely destroyed. That's the Air Force. That's Gila's heroes. Now, admittedly, the pilot in this image wasn't killing civilians in Gaza, at least.
She was killing civilians in Iran, where they're also just mainly bombing residential areas.
Not on this particular mission. She was killing or participating in the killing of civilians in Iran. Israel recently started a war with Iran in an unprovoked act of aggression on false pretenses that Iran was on the verge of developing nuclear weapons. This is a claim that's been made.
And the result of this is that Iran now is actually very... I don't know how likely, but they are seriously considering reversing their policy and getting a nuclear deterrent. Because obviously this would not have happened if they had one.
By Israel and many Western countries for decades, as we'll look at. But for now, the point is that this wasn't some cool, heroic mission that this pilot was on. It was an unjustified escalation and unprovoked act of violence against a country of 90 million people. Gila got some backlash for this post, understandably, praising the warmongering genocide army will do that. So she made a follow-up story doing what she claims is apologizing for what she said. She wrote, "I would like to apologize."
Okay, let's see. I would like to apologize for my recent story and reshare about the female Israeli pilot being a hero. It came off as glorifying violence, which wasn't at all my intention. Well, then what the fuck was your intention? But I understand that that's how it came off. I wanted to highlight the difference between women's lack of rights in Iran under the Ayatollah and women in Israel being given agency to even fight in combat. But not to get a divorce. Shut the fuck up about women's rights in Israel. Women can't even get a fucking divorce in Israel without their husband's permission, so maybe you just shut the fuck up.
Apologize for my recent story reshare about the female Israeli pilot being a hero. It came off as glorifying violence, which wasn't my intention.
Well, bad choice if that wasn't your intention.
Understand that's how it I wanted to highlight the difference between women's lack of rights under the Ayatollah and women in Israel being given agency to even fight in combat. That being said, it's not the best timing or situation to make such a point. War is terrible and should never be glorified, and I'm very sorry for the post. Despite Gila's use of the word, this isn't an apology, it's a justification. Even though I didn't mention it at all or even allude to it, this post was actually about feminism. It was about women's rights in Iran and how I care about them, which is why I support them being bombed.
Using Israel... if you actually look into women's rights in Israel, the women's rights situation in Israel sucks shit. I mean, anyone who's trying to act like this Israel is some sort of paradise for women's rights is just either buying it or selling it.
Apparently, if that is what she meant by her post and just completely failed to communicate it, it's not like that's any better, right? That's just girl boss imperialism. When Israeli women participate in Israel's violent lunacy all across the Middle East, bombing Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, now Iran, they're actually doing feminism. This image comes to mind. I'm sure you've seen it. It's pretty much exactly like this image. This is Parnia Abbasi. She was a 23-year-old artist from Tehran. Israel killed her in these attacks, possibly the very attack that this girl pilot participated in. Is that feminism? Was the idea of
And I see that the story that she was sharing was from Yosef Haddad, who is Israel's token Palestinian, one of them, whose entire thing is to shit all over his own people and justify Israel's genocide of them, as if that means that he's going to be exempt from it. Like they aren't eventually going to come for him.
Liberating this young woman from the clutches of the Ayatollah. No, of course not. That's insane. But according to Hila Klein, they kind of were. You know, there's nothing in her apology that indicates otherwise. Vague condemnations of violence and war.
Yeah, like she did not say a thing about like maybe a war of aggression, an unprovoked war of aggression being a bad thing specifically.
Praising the aggressors is not an apology. It's lip service. Hila's use of the word agency is interesting here too, I think, for a few reasons. If this is what agency is, you know, the right to participate in unprovoked acts of aggression and also genocide, then yes, that agency should be revoked, not just from the women, but from everyone.
Yeah, the idea is that nobody is supposed to have agency to do those things. That was like one of the bedrock principles of the post-World War II system of international law, which has now been replaced by the rules-based order, where you just sort of make up the rules as is convenient. So now Israel suddenly has decided that bombing hospitals is bad, but only if A, the building is empty, B, it was being used for military purposes, C, that wasn't the actual target, D, the target was actually the military intelligence building immediately adjacent to it, and E, it's not Israel doing it. When Israel does it, it's of course cool.
Genocide and unprovoked military aggressions that kill.
See, the rules-based order is much more fluid about things like this than international law is.
Civilians tend to infringe upon the agency of others by killing them, you know, and their families and destroying their lives. So if Iranian women do not have the agency to do that, then that is a good thing, because no one should. Calling it agency is also interesting when we consider that, you know, Hila served in
a nice complete lack of trigger discipline there. You're not supposed to... Okay, first of all, there's no magazine in there. You're not supposed to be putting your finger... Everybody else knows better than to put their finger on the trigger when you're just doing a fucking photo op. She is... that is absolutely a firearm safety no-no, but, I mean, it's Israel. Fuck knows what they actually teach these people.
Yeah. The IDF, according to her own husband, is a terrorist organization.
So you think the IDF is a terror organization?
I said yes.
And so naturally there has to be some excuse for her time in this service, and the excuse they use that is often...
I mean, to the extent that Ethan actually really believes that. I mean, what really struck me about that debate is how Ethan was just sort of trying to get past that issue in order to talk about some random bullshit that had nothing to do with anything. He just wanted to talk about fucking drama slop nonsense. And so he was just sort of conceding all these things in order to be able to change the subject. So I have my doubts that he sincerely believes any of that.
It is that Israel has mandatory conscription.
Hila was doing mandatory military service. What should she have done?
Hila had no other choice. It was the law. She was just following orders. She had no agency, let's say. Now, this isn't exactly true, right? Because you can dodge service in the IDF with things like conscientious objection or medical exemption. The latter is what Ethan did or tried to do, apparently, and the former, well, nobody in Israel really does that aside from like 10 people, because most of them support the genocide.
I mean, it's more than 10, but not a whole lot more. I mean, it is a disgracefully small number.
And do it, right?
But people do like choose to go to prison rather than joining the occupation forces.
Didn't But even still, she did have some agency in the IDF. According to her, when she got bored of her desk job, she requested a transfer and ended up participating in at least one IDF raid on the illegally occupied West Bank in Ramallah, which they refer to as a terrorist city.
At first, I was given a role that was like in an office somewhat close to my house in Tel Aviv, and it was super boring and I really hated it. So I tried to change my role. I somehow ended up in a better place that I liked a lot more. It was kind of like just more of an adventure.
Oh, it's so adventurous. Yes, that's wonderful.
Of a different experience that I preferred than to just go to a boring job.
You told me once you went on like a mission with them to like a terrorist city.
Yeah.
That was kind of a crazy story.
A terrorist city. Fuck off.
So my officers and like the soldiers in that brigade, they would go every night on a raid.
Right.
In Ramallah to arrest terrorists. So one time I wanted to go with them, just to experience it.
Why, you just were all of a sudden...
Just to experience it? Like, seriously, what the fuck? Yeah, she can fuck off. I mean, it's like, okay, let me qualify that slightly. Somebody can feel that way at the time and then come away later and say, wow, that was really fucked up what I was doing. And actually reject the entire thing that they were involved in, and have a certain amount of accountability because they're acknowledging that what they were doing was just a fucking atrocity. But she does not seem to be.
Had an urge to go with them?
I just wanted to see what it's like.
Right.
I wanted to see it. They took me with them one night, even though they weren't supposed to.
Did they arrest anyone?
Well, I mean, they're also not supposed to murder people in the occupied West Bank. In fact, they're not supposed to be occupying the West Bank. Yeah, so they're kind of okay with what you're not supposed to. Yeah, I mean, and, like, the way, not only was she holding that gun, not only was she holding that AR-15 with her finger on the trigger, which you're absolutely not supposed to do, she also had the fucking muzzle raised. Like, if there was a round chambered, if she had not bothered to check to make sure that there wasn't one, which, I mean, given that she's putting her finger on there like that, and just the overall incompetence of the IDF, I dare to doubt. Like, if she had fucking sneezed, she could have taken somebody's Achilles tendon out.
That night?
They did.
Did they bring it in the same car with you?
No.
Oh,
There's
different car.
a few cars going.
Damn, that's crazy.
The specifics of this crime have been left vague, but if it was anything like what these raids usually entail, Hila is probably a war criminal. I mean, the West Bank is illegally occupied land, and raids like this are in violation of international law.
Yeah.
So that's
and she's smiling about it. I mean, it was just a slight smile. But no sign that she's at all ashamed about this.
Agency for what? Well, helping kidnap Palestinians from their homes in illegally occupied land. This is just liberal feminist language being weaponized for imperial aims. It's kind of like...
Yeah, exactly.
Israel
like, I mean, that is absolutely... That is Kristi Noem level bullshit. Because if you notice any photo, she likes to be photographed with guns, and she always manages to do at least one absolute... cross at least one or two safety red lines when she does it.
As a bastion of progressivism and gay rights, Hamas throws gay people off of roofs. Why do leftists support them? This is just a moral justification.
And also, it's worth noting, it's not true. This throwing people off of roofs thing, Zionists talk about this like that is just a thing they're always doing. That was one specific occasion during the attempted George Bush coup in Gaza, and it was not directed at LGBT people. It was directed at members of Fatah who were associated with Mohammed Dahlan, who was the guy who was the mercenary leader who was in charge of this coup. So, like, that doesn't. So, like, that's just not how that works. That isn't what happened, and anyone who acts like that's just a normal thing that they're always doing is just completely full of shit.
And racist one at that, for liberating queer Palestinians from Hamas by killing them. There's a more subtle thing going on in these posts that I also want to talk about that relates to the broader media ecosystem. On the issue of Israel's attacks on Iran, manufacturing consent, we had to bring it up. Shout out, my boy. Notice the language in Gila's post. She refers to Israel's strikes sort of vaguely as violence that's an aspect of war. This language is representative of a wider phenomenon in Western media, which is just normalizing Israel's crimes. Gila calls it violence, but it's not just violence, right? It's an unprovoked act of aggression from a genocidal state. It's not just war that's happening. Whatever Iran is doing now with its weaponry is responsive. It is in retaliation for Israel's unprovoked attack.
And it was really remarkable. There was this Washington Post headline, either today or yesterday, saying Israel's now in a new kind of war, which is to say they picked on somebody who is nearly their own size and is capable of responding in kind. And it's not going well for them.
Israel's act of aggression was once again being framed as a defensive act of war. That's what Gila's doing in his post, and that's what a lot of people did in the Western news media, as well as most Western governments, including, obviously, hundreds of American politicians. One way that helps me compare this sort of media coverage is with ground news.
Yeah. Okay, that was more Noah than Klein's, but it looks like a good video. I'm going to be watching that later off of stream. I think we're going to switch over. Curious about this.
Running in a political campaign, I have a hard time seeing him not win it. By the same token, it may be different.
This is another one of these long-ass compilation videos. And wait, this one doesn't even seem to have Caleb in there.
On the ground. Brave, what's going on, my man? ATL.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Good morning. I just wanted to, really quick, last night, Kim Iverson had Caleb Maupin on.
I saw that.
So this is... Caleb Maupin is claiming his place in history.
Really? Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up and mention to you guys if you had not seen it. Since you have, look at your take on it. And I think the response...
No, wait. I saw her on it. I didn't see the show, if that makes sense. It was, as you were going through, I saw the fact that he was on it, but I didn't actually see the details of it, so you gotta explain it. Yeah.
Okay. This is, once again, it's like he's just taking all these, like, clips from just random shit and putting them into a 9-hour and 45-minute video. Like, this is the most low-effort content ever.
Now, I have had the joy of friendship with Caleb for a few years now, so have some of you. But I won't have...
This is before the first collapse, the collapse of CPI Mark 1.
I won't preach to the choir about his brilliant mind, his originality, or his courage. I will say that I've never read, let alone met, anyone living who better combines such eloquence.
He speaks with such conviction here. And it's sort of fitting that he's praising a lackluster cult leader with a hat on that says obey. Like, I don't... That's a little on the nose.
Learning and passionate commitment into so timely and powerful a voice. And in fact, it's, I think, the very voice that our country needs right now to break its fever and make up. Now, let's have a show of hands here. I know this sounds random, but who here has ever stayed up all night?
Has what?
Has ever seen a woman?
Stayed up all night long.
Oh yeah.
Many times, right? Now, so think about what the first sound before the morning is. I'm from the country.
Oh, we're saying. He's saying that Caleb is a cock.
So maybe my experience is different than some of yours. But for me, breaking the sounds of the night is a new sound that's not the crickets or coy dogs or the owl. It's the first note of the first song of the first bird in the early, early morning.
Okay, and what? We're saying that he's the morning bird? Where the fuck are you going with this?
If you're outside, you look at the sky, you see the stars really adjusting themselves. The sky's color is taking on the faintest expression of light. Is that note that you know that the morning cannot be far away, and that nothing on earth can stop the rising of the sun? So my friends, let's hear it for Caleb Maupin.
Wow. So, before we begin, why don't we all just stand up and stretch and breathe for just a minute? Stay at your seat and just stretch and breathe.
Right? Who cares? Wow, this is him claiming his place in history and apparently doing fucking calisthenics.
Stress in our lives. Some of us have midterm exams coming up. Some of us are involved in some of the important electoral campaigns that are going on right now. I know some of us, maybe worried about paying your bills. Well, you can forget all about that for the next 40 minutes or so. You're safe, and we're just going to have a short
You're safe. Yeah, that didn't turn out to be true.
conversation about the problems facing the United States of America right now and what can be done about it. So, the theme for my presentation tonight is patterns, right? Patterns are all around us. The sun goes up, the sun goes down, the tide comes in, the tide goes out, spring...
Caleb Maupin starts a cult. Caleb Maupin liquidates the legal entity for legal reasons and moves across the country.
Summer, fall, winter, then spring again, right? Then
Wow, yeah, he's the seasons and stuff. That's wild.
Then fall, then winter, right? Patterns are all around us, and part of the human experience, if you look at history, is people struggling to try and figure out those patterns in nature. The world is so full of chaos and insecurity, but people are trying to find out what they can know is going to happen next, to anticipate.
Well, I mean, the nice thing about Caleb is you do always know what's going to happen next. He is very predictable.
To get some security, to get some peace. That's something we've been struggling to do. And one of the things that human beings have always done is they've told stories, right? We know about ancient Greek myths and
Yeah, Caleb tells stories, that's true.
legends. We know about some of the stories from the Native American tradition, some of the stories from Africa, some of the stories from ancient Europe. Myths and legends, stories, they have a special place in the human species. It's part of the way we point to higher truths. And I think that's just as true now as it was in ancient times. And there's one particular story that was written about 80 years ago
The Nazgul who cried wolf.
that I think all of us here should still know pretty well. If I said to you, faster than a speeding bullet, faster than a locomotive,
Oh God, Caleb is Clark Kent now.
leap a tall building in a single bound, look up at the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman. Right? Superman was first written in 1939. My grandparents knew who Superman was, and I think it's pretty safe to say that my grandchildren are going to know who Superman was, right? It's a story that just speaks to us, right?
I mean, I don't think it's safe to say that he's likely to have grandchildren.
He's an alien from another planet. He's crash landed on Earth. He looks just like any other human being, but he's got superpowers, and he could rule the world.
How is he going to bring this into, chat? Any guesses on how the hell he's going to tie this into what he's talking about here?
But he doesn't. Instead, he lives a humble life as mild-mannered Clark Kent. He's got those glasses on and no one can recognize him. It's like the perfect disguise, right? And, he goes around and...
That joke totally failed to land.
Instead of using his powers to rule over people and to oppress people, he uses his powers to...
He doesn't even use his powers to get people to become economically dependent on him and force them to spank him.
Protect the innocent, right? And he's a humble guy. He doesn't like violence. He doesn't want to hurt anybody. He just wants to live a decent life and protect those who are in need. Around the world, Superman is actually considered to be a very American story, and not just Superman, but the whole genre of superheroes, Batman, Spider-Man, all of that, is considered to be very, very American. And that gives me hope, because if Americans can love Superman, then Americans can love socialism.
Okay. If Americans can love Superman, Americans can love socialism. This is back before he decided that actually he's calling his grift innovationism. I mean, this is 2018. All sorts of stuff hasn't happened yet.
Bear with me, that might sound like a shock.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any actual sense, but okay.
I told you Superman was first written by 2 comic book writers in Cleveland in 1939. Well, one of Superman's first actions was to save a group of striking miners, right? These miners were on strike, their crooked boss was looking to go after them, so Superman flies in and rescues them.
I did not know that. I mean, I don't actually doubt it because but I hadn't heard that. Neat.
And
okay.
Those early Superman comics are full of statements against racism, condemning racism and bigotry. Now, today that might sound like just some lame liberal, you know, we hear that everywhere.
Yeah, in fact, Caleb condemns that sort of thing as woke.
Back in 1939, when Jim Crow segregation was still in effect and lynchings were taking place, the fact that this nationally syndicated...
I mean, given what the cops get up to, you could say that on a certain level they are still taking place in a slightly different form.
A comic book was denouncing racism was a very big deal. And don't forget that during the Second World War, in the radio version of Superman, Superman actually fought the Ku Klux Klan, right? They called them the Knights of the Fiery Cross, and he fought against the Klan. Why? Well, the Second World War was going on, and fascism was the enemy. And the Soviet Union...
I mean, actually, in this vein, it's worth noting that when the Nuremberg trials were going on, and one of the subjects that came up during those trials was, of course, the Nazi Nuremberg laws. And the British prosecutor was taking the lead on that. And the U.S. colleague, the U.S. prosecutor, actually told him to give it a rest because it was making white people in the South uncomfortable to hear what the Nazis just basically did Jim Crow.
Was the ally. And these Klansmen, they were admiring Hitler, and they were preaching racism, and they were dividing the country and helping the enemy. So Superman went into battle to fight the Klansmen. Who's Lex Luthor? Who's Lex Luthor? So he's a bald guy, a maniacally evil bald guy. He's using
A maniacally evil bald guy. Okay.
He's not using technology to make a better life for the people. He's using technology so he can rip people off and hurt the community and make super profits at the expense of everyone else. So basically, Lex Luthor is Jeff Bezos.
Okay, I will have to give him that one. I'm gonna... Let's see. Skipping ahead since we have 9 hours of this shit.
That, you know, if you have the attitude of you're not going to succeed, you won't. And if you have the attitude that you will succeed, you will. I like that quote. But I'm actually tonight I'm going to use a much more complicated. Sorry, I've got some water here.
Yeah, I mean, and the idea. I mean, actually, I have to say, that is an example of him saying something that is. I mean, he has this thing that he'll do, where he starts out by saying something that pretty much like any leftist could probably get with. You know, it's vague enough that it doesn't, and then he starts and then he says, and therefore, and the conclusion that he brings it to is some seriously dodgy shit. Hi, GGM. Like, that actually, I mean, that wasn't so bad. I've heard like decent people say similar things, because I mean, his point there that he was starting out with was that the cultural, that a culture that finds this character so compelling, yeah, he edited it down to almost 10 hours. I don't think he edited shit. I think he just sort of piles this on until it gets to be the full. As long, I think 10 hours is the maximum you can upload on YouTube.
Just a much more complicated quotation from the great Confucius that I think is a great way to start the presentation. And this is from the Book of Rights, that was published in the 1st century BC, and one of the most important books of Confucian teachings, one of the oldest ones, published at least 100 years before Jesus Christ was born. Yan Yan, and it's a reminiscence of the great Confucius. Yan Yan was by his side and said to him, "Master, what are you sighing about?"
And he probably had just thought presciently that a couple of thousand years later there would be a Caleb Maupin.
And Confucius replied, "I never saw the practice of the grand course and the eminent men of the 3 great dynasties, but I have my object in harmony with theirs. When the grand course was pursued, a public and common spirit ruled all under the sky. They chose men of talents, virtue, and ability, and their words were sincere, and they were cultivated with harmony. And thus men did not love their parents right." And another quote from Revelations, "And he showed me a..."
Okay, is he just gonna do fucking random quotes? So we've got Revelations, Confucius, and Critique of the Gotha Program.
Right? After labor has become not only a means of life, but life's prime want, meaning people won't have to work, but they'll do it because they want to. After the productive forces have increased with the...
he was already doing communism as one line goes up back then.
...around development of the individual, and the springs of cooperative wealth flow more abundantly. The enslaving subordination of the...
...of years. But in just a few thousand years, 8,000 years, we've gone from hunter-gatherers in the woods to space travel and iPhones. We have the ability to reinvent our relationship with nature in a way that...
I wonder if this is when he's going to reinvent his relationship with dry erase boards and write on one, rather than, posting pieces of paper on it. But I just noticed the time. It is time to wrap up for tonight. Thank you to everyone who joined in. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I will be back tomorrow night at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, and I hope to see you all then. Have a good night. Have a good rest.